John here, and today we're going to talk about and review The Burbs. Great comedy, and definitely one of my favorites. But the story, real quick, you have Tom Hanks in the film who plays Ray Peterson. He's on vacation from work. He has a week off. You have these neighbors that have just moved in, the Klopeks, and they're very unusual. They don't mow their lawn. They don't go out much. And you have some other people that live in this neighborhood. You have a couple of buddies of Tom Hanks's character. You have Rumsfield, who is played by Bruce Dern. You have Art, who is played by Rick Dukeman. And this other neighbor, Walter. But one day, Walter disappears. And Ray Peterson, Tom Hanks's character, along with his other buddies, they begin to suspect that the Klopeks may have something to do with the disappearance of Walter. And they begin to investigate the Klopeks, trying to find out more about them. And they believe that the Klopeks are this murderous cult. And yeah, that's the plot to the film here. Now, the film is directed by Joe Dante, who directed The Howling. He directed Gremlins 1 and 2. He also directed Inner Space. He would go on to direct other movies like Matinee with John Goodman, which is a good movie. He also directed Small Soldiers, which I reviewed not too long ago. And the cast here, you have a very good cast. You got Tom Hanks in the film, who's Ray Peterson. You have Bruce Dern, who is Rumsfield. And so Tom Hanks' character, he's the father. He's more of the skeptic. He doesn't really believe, like he has a watchful eye on the Klopeks, but he doesn't want to believe that anything's going on. You have Rumsfield, who is this, crazed war veteran who lives across the street, and he's pretty much ready for action. You have Art in the film, who's played by Rick Dukeman. He's the guy that is the nosy neighbor. He's watching the Klopeks 24/7 and keeping tabs on their activities and what they're doing. And you have other people here in the cast. You have Carrie Fisher, who is the wife of Tom Hanks. You have Corey Feldman, who's Ricky Butler. This young kid that lives in this cul-de-sac. You have Wendy Shaw. And Wendy Shaw, you've seen her before. She would collaborate with Joe Dante in other movies. In Inner Space, I remember she was in that. She was in this movie. You have Henry Gibson, who's the doctor. He plays Dr. Klopek in the movie. And the Klopeks, so you have Henry Gibson, you have Theodore Gottlieb, who plays Ruben. You have Courtney Gaines, who is Hans. And so those are the Klopeks. And you have other appearances here. You have Dick Miller in the film. Actually, you have Dick Miller and Robert Picardo. They're garbage men. And those two actors would collaborate with Joe Dante quite a bit. Dick Miller, he was in Inner Space. I mean, he's been in a variety of different movies. He was in The Terminator, The Pawn Shop Guy. Like I said, he's been in countless movies. Unfortunately, he's passed away. Robert Picardo, again, same thing. He's been in a variety of stuff and has even worked with Joe Dante on quite a few other projects. But like I said, a very good cast here. But getting into what I love about the movie here, the opening shot of the film I thought was really well done. Where it's kind of a slow zooming into this neighborhood, this cul-de-sac. And then when we get to the characters themselves, which I've talked about the main three, but it is the main three of Tom Hanks, Bruce Dern, and Rick Dukeman, throughout the movie that really have an enjoyable rapport. Combined with this cul-de-sac location, it really makes it delightful to watch. And you have other supporting characters in the film that really complement the movie, that do a good job, from Corey Feldman, even though nowadays I'm not a fan of the guy, but at this time, he was doing some good stuff. And he's good in the movie. Carrie Fisher, I thought, did a good job as the wife of Tom Hanks. Wendy Shaw, I thought, was good here as Bruce Dern's girlfriend or wife. So again, very good cast, and yeah, the neighborhood setting I thought was really, done well here, for a film that takes place in one location, which you don't really see, that nowadays. You really don't see that a lot in films, where everything takes place in one location. And the Klopeks, these characters, again, they're strange, they're unusual, and as the film goes along, it's really Rick Dukeman, his character Art, he's trying to convince Ray that these guys are Satanists. I remember the scene in the basement where they're going through this book about cults, and Rick Dukeman's like, they're Satanists, and, I want to kill everyone. Satan is good. Satan's our pal. Which that line apparently was ad-libbed by Rick Dukeman. But, you're chanting, Ray. You're chanting. And there's a lot of imaginative, scenes in the movie, where Tom Hanks, just one example here, where he has a bad dream, and it's a crazy, scene where he's being sacrificed. And he wakes up the next morning, he's being sacrificed by the Klopeks in this dream. And the next morning, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is on the TV. But soon that they discovered this femur bone. Art finds a femur bone. This is Walter. And that's a, memorable scene. So, it's really Art who is trying to convince, Tom Hanks, Art, these neighbors, they're Satanists. We have to do something about these neighbors. Bruce Dern in the film, again, he's Rumsfield. He's always ready for action. He's ready for the call to do anything. And so he's helping, Art spy on the Klopeks. Carrie Fisher, again, she's the wife of Tom Hanks. She wants nothing to do with it. Very skeptical, and, wants us all to stop. And one day, soon enough after all of the stuff, Carrie Fisher's like, let's just go over there. Let's greet ourselves and bring brownies. And so they meet the Klopeks, and from that moment, things get weirder with the Klopeks. And that's when Tom Hanks, along with his buddies, they begin to really investigate the Klopeks, because that they believe that there's bodies buried in their backyard. And so when the wife leaves to go to the cabin, like, to the lake or whatever, Tom Hanks, his character, Rick Dukeman's character, and Bruce Dern, they all go over to the Klopeks. The Klopeks are gone. They leave for the day. And so they sneak into their backyard and they start digging up their yard and trying to find bodies. They go into their house and try to find evidence that, they're psychopaths. And they're kind of leading up to the third act of the movie, where all this stuff happens, and turns out that they were. But yeah, I just love this movie. It's one of my favorite comedies. It's a film that I can, gush about for an hour. And this Blu-ray here, again, is a Shout Select. The features that are on this Blu-ray, so you have a new 2017 2K scan of The Inner Positive. You have a audio commentary with the writer, moderated by author Callum Waddell, which I haven't listened to the commentary yet. Maybe I should. I did watch this featurette, There Goes the Neighborhood, The Making of the Burbs. Now, you don't have Tom Hanks interviewed. Rick Dukeman, sadly, he's passed away. He passed away back in 2015, which, I miss that guy. Rick Dukeman, this guy you've seen before. He was in Die Hard. He had a bit part in that movie. I think the first movie I ever saw him in was in Blank Check, for people that remember that. He was the limousine driver for the little kid in that movie. Yeah, Blank Check, he was in that movie. He was in Scary Movie. He's been in some other films, but like I said, sadly, he's passed away. Bruce Dern is not interviewed, but Joe Dante is interviewed on here. Corey Feldman, Courtney Gaines, Whitney Shaw, Wendy Shaw, and it's about an hour long. It's more about how the film came together. You do hear a couple of stories about Corey Feldman being at the time being very troublesome, and apparently like he invited porn stars onto the set. That's what Wendy Shaw kind of alluded to. But I heard some crazy behind the scenes stuff on the Burbs too, that Bubbles, the chimp that Michael Jackson had, like, came onto the set one day. And yeah, I've heard some crazy stories about the Burbs. But yeah, I mean, that is about an hour long. So it's not too bad of a, featurette. You have an alternate ending on here. Original work print includes deleted and extended scenes, still galleries, trailers. So again, not too bad. I mean, I would love to see, what Tom Hanks thinks about the movie. Like, nowadays, he's not really known for comedies. But, back then in the 80s, when he was, slowly, gaining traction, whatever, he was doing these comedies. I don't know. I mean, I would love to hear what Tom Hanks has to say about the movie. From what I've read, that everybody who worked on the movie, enjoyed, working with Tom Hanks, and it was a good set. Like, that everybody got along. I think Tom Hanks and Rick Dukeman, I even wrote it down here, they didn't really get along during filming. Tom Hanks and Rick Dukeman, because I think Rick Dukeman was always ad-libbing and kind of, being a little bit more loose, and maybe Tom Hanks was trying to, get everything done, and but Joe Dante, he kept it professional, or it was more so Hanks. Hanks kept it professional. So I mean, but I would love maybe if one day Tom Hanks, and it's a shame because he's never asked about this movie. He's always asked about Forrest Gump, Saving Private Ryan, Apollo 13, Toy Story. I mean, Catch Me If You Can. He's never asked about this movie. In every interview, no one brings up the Burbs. But yeah, I mean, with all that being said, and I talked about, some stuff here about the movie, let me get to my final thoughts. But overall, a delightful dark comedy with a good cast. Wonderful direction by Joe Dante, and yeah, The Burbs is one of my favorite comedies. But that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.